In today's Whiteboard Leadership Moment, I want to talk to you about the focus of your meetings. We all have meetings, and meetings have a purpose, but how many times have we gotten off course or felt like that meeting was not worth the time and we just kind of missed the mark? And so I want to give you a few tools to help you think through how to keep a meeting focused, on target, and effective in your ministry or in your organization. And the first thought is this, is to decide the format. Typically, in a format, you have informed conversations, you have advised conversations, and you decide conversations. Informed conversations are the conversations about what everyone needs to know between the last meeting and this meeting. What happened and what progress was made, and there's evaluation and analysis and just an FYI kind of nature to the informed. The advise means there's a decision being made. We don't have the power to make the decision, but we have a voice, not necessarily a vote. And so I want your input on this, on that, and we'll take it back to the other group so they can make a decision, but they wanted to hear from you. And then finally, there's the decide power. What decisions need to be made in this particular meeting? So decide the format of the meeting. Second is to define the purpose of the meeting and the rules of engagement. This is by far my favorite one because very often meetings get off course from the very beginning because we didn't talk about here's what this meeting is about. And sometimes we don't talk about how we're going to treat each other in the meeting. And so what I encourage churches and organizations to do, what we do at Converge, is that we have a covenant that we read at the beginning of our meetings. In my board meetings, I remind everyone of what their role is, what we're talking about, and how we're going to interact with each other, and what their role is outside the meeting. In our meetings with the district leaders, we read our covenant about Converge, how we start and strengthen churches together worldwide, and how we choose to treat each other. And it's several pages long, and we take turns going around the room and talking about how we're going to treat each other, how we're going to treat the topic, how we're going to interact, what we're going to do as a result of this. And it's just been really, really helpful for us as we move forward and starting and stringing the churches together worldwide. The third thing to think about is to develop language of engagement. This is a part of that covenant piece and how we treat each other. But I found that a whole lot of organizations, a whole lot of meetings get sidetracked because of the interaction, because of the way people say things. Not everyone has a very high relational intelligence, and they can say things in ways that are abrupt or discouraging or disheartening or demeaning, and we just don't want to do that. So here's a few tricks that we've learned through the years. The first is this, is to ask the question, well, help me understand. If you disagree with someone, if you're not sure what they said, it's better to clarify it right then than it is to wait till later and assume you knew what they were saying. So help me understand. Are you saying this? Can you say that a different way so that I understand it better? I really want to understand. You seek to understand before being understood. The second is this. Can I have permission to push back? I think I've heard what you said. I think you said this, and this. Is now the right time? Can I push back on that? Saying, can I push back on that is a whole lot better than I totally disagree with you. That is totally wrong. I can't believe you thought that way. That will just kill a meeting right there. I mean, the relational tension just gets so high because you're too aggressive. Okay, I think I understand what you're saying, but can I push back on it a little bit? You asked permission, and yeah, go ahead. Which means I have some questions I need to be answered before I can get on board with you. And it's just a whole lot more gentle in the way you interact when you might have potential disagreement. The next one is what's on your mind and heart. Very often in a meeting, you'll see people shut down. You'll see them not engage. You may have someone who's more introverted than extroverted. And very often in meetings, extroverts will say everything in their mind because they're processing verbally. It's all out there. And yet the wisest person in the meeting very often is one person who just says one thing every half hour. And yet there are others that have ideas or have thoughts, have feelings, have a sense, and you want to kind of look around the room and make sure that you're kind of a facilitator of the conversation, saying, well, Josh, looks like you have an idea. What do you think it is? What's on your heart, Gabe? What do you think, Ryan? And just pull that out, draw that out in them, and they typically have some great things that God's been doing because they've been thinking this whole time, and God's given them a word for the group. There's another thing that I do, as I call a sidebar. When I see that a conversation is going deep, deep, deep down a rabbit trail, where we've gotten off topic, I just look at the people interacting and say, listen, guys, good discussion. But let's call a sidebar on that. So during the break, can you guys have that conversation? Because we need to get back to the business at hand. And I'm bringing them back to what we talked about in the covenant and the content of the meeting. So can we call a sidebar? In fact, sometimes at the end of a meeting, I'll say, hey, does anyone have any sidebar conversations they want to have with others? And they'll point to each other across the table and make sure that they have those conversations they need to have. Umbrella of grace is one of my favorites because it means that I'm about to say something that may be controversial, that may be a stupid idea in some people's minds, that may be something else. So I say, umbrella of grace, what if we did this? Which means that, guys, I know I'm stepping out of the boundaries. I know I'm going to say something that potentially might hurt somebody or challenge the status quo. And so I just, listen, guys, I recognize I'm stepping into the trap right now. So umbrella of grace as I say this. And hopefully someone will go back and will help me understand and be kind to me, or let me push back and be kind to me in how they interact with me. And finally, it's what I call traffic light signals when it comes to decision-making time. Very often we decide people are either in or they're out. They're yes or they're no. But the fact is, we just assume that people have the same processing speed that we have. And so it's really important to say, well, as we think about the decision right now, how many of you are a green light on the decision? Have them raise their hands. Any yellow lights? In other words, proceed, but proceed slowly and with caution. Any red lights, which means just stop now because I'm not sure I can go this way. By having that, a green light, red light, yellow light, what we find is that there are a whole lot more yellow lights than there are red lights very often in the meeting. That they want to move forward, but their cautions are there. Even with a red light, I'll say, so what can you just spell out what's your red light? What is the concern that you have that would just stop us right here? What's your red light or yellow light? Well, that means you have some questions. What questions do you want to ask? Who needs to clarify more? And you get clarification, and hopefully you get to the place where you're moving toward people getting better understanding and clarity, getting their questions answered. This also fights the idea that you have to have unanimity in order to move forward. You just don't have that very often. God puts different things on people's hearts, and if there's a unanimous decision, that's great. But in most of my scenarios, whether we're going to go multi-site or whether we're going to start this ministry or end that ministry, I've rarely had 100% saying, yes, we're all on the same page. I've had a lot of yellow lights, and I've had sometimes red lights. No matter what, the meeting has to move forward, and you have to have the rules of engagement, the language of engagement, and you have to know the content of the meeting. I hope you would take this and now apply it to your meetings and look at your week and look at your month and see how can we apply these things in the gatherings that we have to move this church, this organization forward. This has been a Converge Whiteboard Leadership Moment. To learn more about Converge or to join us, check out converge.org.